I'm Larry Anglisano reporting for Avionics News, a publication of the Aircraft Electronics Association and a good resource for avionics and maintenance shops. You know, when a Beech King Air 200 made a successful autonomous emergency Autoland landing in Colorado recently, the mainstream and aviation media put a lot of attention on Garmin's Autoland technology, but I don't think there was nearly enough attention put on the shop that actually did the installation in this King Air. It was Blackhawk Aerospace. I recently caught up with Blackhawk Aerospace's Conrad Theisen for an overview of what it takes to retrofit an old King Air 200 with the Garmin Autoland system.
But yeah, this one came in. It was a vintage cockpit, if you will. We installed the Garmin G1000, the Platinum package, as they call it, which is basically synthetic vision, Jepson charts, and a Flightstream 510. We did the surface watch, new radio altimeter, and then we did the Autothrottle Autoland. This was the first one that was done after Garmin certified the platform on the 200. So this was the first one aftermarket. And again, our shop in Columbia, Missouri, that's where our first MRO is at. We've been doing these for several years. Comes down to a lot of pre-planning from the shop, from ordering all the parts, doing all the research on the airplane, fabricating wire harness. So when the airplane arrives, we have wire harness ready, and we are ready to go into the phase of actually removing the old Avionics wire bundles. And then laying the new wire harnesses back in. A lot of sheet metal in the background, autopilot, servos, radar, all the LRUs, mounting of all the equipment, all that goes in the airplane. And it's a very rigid process that we have to ensure success. Not only for calendar time is the biggest thing. We pride ourselves on our successful deliveries, and we meet those dates. But this one was a 5-week downtime for the first one with the Autothrottle Autoland. And we delivered that back to the customer, and then obviously they went off and they sold that airplane to the Buffalo River.
Are you saying it only took 5 weeks to do a G1000 transformation and all the other stuff, or what? That's a remarkable short amount of time in the shop, I think.
Yeah, we turn the G1000 NXI suite with Autothrottle Autoland in a 5-week downtime.
Okay.
And again, that comes from the shop and a lot of pre-planning, wire harness ready to go. Now, and to take that back a step, we kind of talked about if an airplane would come in with the G1000, there's some prerequisites that I have to talk through with the customer, interview the customer, get some equipment lists. If it's a legacy G1000 system, it's required to get the NXI upgrade. And then also there's a hardware package behind it. It's coined as in the industry phase 2 hardware. That's something that would need to be done on a legacy G1000.
Yeah.
And if the airplane is already equipped with all that, then we can go right into the Autothrottle Autoland. If we're doing Autothrottle Autoland in an airplane that already has G1000, we're 3 weeks downtime for that particular upgrade. There's a lot of older, I guess more antiquated wire and relay switching for landing gear, flaps, props, their starters. There's a lot of airframe interface that needs to be switched out to support the Autothrottles, the Autoland system. Excuse me.
Yeah. That's sort of what I want to talk about here, I think, because a lot of people don't really understand or maybe even appreciate the amount of airframe work that goes into a Autoland Autothrottle interface. So Garmin G1000 aside, we know these installations have been very successful in the King Air market for a lot of years. I sort of lost count at nearly 1,000 of these things retrofitted over the years. But when we start talking about the latest auto throttle with Autoland software, talk me through the airframe interface. I'm talking landing gear, I'm talking wing flaps, and even the auto throttle side of it. From a nuts and bolts and electrical standpoint out on the shop floor, how does the interface look?
Yeah, so the prerequisite, I guess, if you want to call it that, to auto land is obviously the auto throttle. You got to have that before we can do auto land.
Sure.
But there are a couple servos that get mounted back behind the pedestal in the pedestal area. That's where the power levers are driven with the auto throttle. Most of that is done background with the Garmin G1000. The auto throttle side of it is not as invasive, if you will. I mean, like I said, it's a few servos that are installed back behind the pedestal, and then just a lot of wiring interface after that. The auto land is where the complexity comes into play. Again, if you can picture a series of relays that will switch out to landing gear logic, flap logic, starters, props. There's just a lot of logic that has to be relay switched out back and forth through Garmin and just standard interface with the airplane. I've told a lot of the technicians here that if this airplane's lucky and everyone in there, knock on wood, that it'll sit in the standard configuration and never go into an auto throttle auto land unless it's tested. But that's one thing I really do want to speak to with Garmin, how detailed their checkout procedures are. One of the unique things with auto land is we can't go out and test that after we install that system. Everything else with Garmin G1000 and that entire upgrade package, we will take the airplane out and we'll go do a thorough test flight with the airplane. The auto land, we're not allowed to push that button and show the pilot, the owner, whomever's doing the flights with us, test flights with us, that system works. It's a trust factor.
Huh.
So this, what just occurred out in Colorado is a very huge success story. But it goes to show that the thorough testing and ground testing that you do after the upgrade, that you trust that system does work, and it is proven.
I know you said you can't really test it in the real world once you get these done, but what kind of testing do you do afterwards because I know there's landing gear, there's wing flaps, there's lots of airframe interface. How do you do it? Final check of these things.
So basically, put the airplane on jacks.
Okay.
And again, going back to Garmin, Garmin has and always does and continues to have very detailed checklists. There is a very, very stringent series of checkout procedures that are required to be done for the Autoland system. So basically, you'll go test all the manual inputs, run the gear, run the flaps. Obviously, when you get out, start the engines, all the different airframe controls. You'll retest them after you run them through a bank of relays. And then Garmin, obviously, when you're on jacks, will go into there's a test mode and a test feature, and it'll run through all the IOs and series of tests from the Garmin side as well and do all those controlled features. And it's a very rigid, detailed line item by line item checklist that you go through detailed checks to ensure that this is a operating auto land system.
Yeah. Last, I might add that my sense is that it's a still pretty brisk market for these upgrades on these aging fleet of King Air models. It's a workhorse. Folks love these airplanes for a lot of good reasons. What are you seeing in the market? Is there still a lot of demand for major upgrades, including the G1000 and the King Air?
Yeah, the market is very strong on the King Air side. Garmin has a 20-year roadmap for the Garmin G1000 for those King Airs. Now on the King Air 350s, you can get domestic CPDLC.
Yeah.
That's becoming more prevalent in the States. But they have a roadmap and have shown and proven that for the last 15 years doing these G1000 suites. They continue to enhance the suite. They continue to add added features. And again, the Autoland is a game changer in this industry. The King Air just has such a good hull value. Owner operators love the airplane, and it just makes sense to put that newer Avionics in that King Air and give it that increased added value.